All right, everybody. My name is Luke, and I'm super happy to be here hosting the September Leptos Meetup. It's hard to believe that we've already been doing this since January. So this is our 9th monthly meetup for the Leptos community. We have an awesome show lined up for y'all this month. We've got three awesome guests. Ben should be joining us. He's having technical difficulties right now, but he's going to be joining us as soon as he can. If and when he does, we'll be giving some 0.7 updates at the end of the show. But the three guests that we have joining us this month are going to be Kevin from Cloudflare. He's going to discuss some work that they've done to support Leptos with Cloudflare. Then we're going to go to Mauro with Stalwart. He's going to do a showcase of web admin dashboard that they've built using Leptos. And finally, we will close out the show with Tim, who's created an awesome library called Leptos WebSockets. So with that, Kevin, I'll go ahead and bring you up onto the stage and hand it off to you. And as is always the case, just for everybody listening, join our Discord server. There's always a lively discussion going on over there. And don't forget to do all the social things, like, subscribe. We'd very much appreciate that. And as is also always the case, we are open to questions at the end of each speaker's presentation. So, Kevin, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Luke. Thanks for the intro.
Absolutely. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about what you guys built, and just a quick backstory for the audience here. I just saw on X that Kevin tweeted at us and said that over at Cloudflare they had made an integration, or maybe you can describe it a little bit better, because I don't want to use the wrong verbiage here, but integration or template that works with now Cloudflare and Leptos, which should be super exciting. So yeah, tell us about it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we had our birthday week, the anniversary of the founding of the company last week, this week, I guess, and had a ton of announcements. And one in particular was not really intended for Rust support on workers, but it ended up being super useful for deploying Leptos on workers. And so I'd like to share some slides to give some background, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Can everyone read my slides?
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so if anyone's unfamiliar with Workers, it's a serverless platform. It's primarily based on V8. So most of our workers are deployed written in JavaScript, but we do support other languages via WebAssembly, and Rust is sort of one of the better languages for writing WebAssembly. So we support Rust quite well. And workers run on any of our servers globally. So when you deploy a worker, it runs in all of our locations, very low latency, very scalable. And the platform's got a bunch of awesome features, which I can share these slides after and you can explore. But very cool set of features for managing distributed state, especially. But the thing I'm really excited about, I'm the maintainer of Workers RS. I mostly do that in my free time. This is the Rust SDK for workers. The main goal of Workers RS is to sort of provide access to all of those platform features that I mentioned via sort of idiomatic Rust APIs. Since this is WebAssembly running on V8, normally you would have to use wasm bindgen to interact with a lot of this stuff, kind of in the same way that you would when you're running in the browser. But we provide this SDK, and it makes it really nice and convenient to write server-side code. We have full async support. We recently just did kind of a big refactor so that we're using the standard HTTP crate types. And so you can write Axum on the server side. You can make HTTP requests using request and hyper, and it's all super slick. And we also do support Hyperdrive, which is Cloudflare's solution for database access. If you've got a ton of servers globally running workers, you don't want them all initiating different connections to your backend database. So we do connection pooling and query caching for you. And we really support any crate that targets WASM32 in Rust. So it's a pretty nice platform. So what we announced last week was Workers Assets. And I have kind of this is from our docs. I have kind of an overview of what this looks like. So when a client makes a request, we now check to see if the path matches a static asset that you've uploaded. If it does, we'll serve that asset for free, and we'll never invoke your worker. And if it doesn't match, so for instance, if you hit the root path with Leptos, or if you hit any of your server function API paths, it'll invoke your worker, and you'll be able to respond to the client using your backend code at that point. So basically, what we did in Workers RS was we created a cargo generate template to let you get started really quickly. It sort of demonstrates server-side rendering and using server functions with workers. It's really easy to build your front-end assets, serve them with workers assets, like I mentioned. And if you don't mind, I'll just quickly demo the template. Sorry.
I said, yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So if people aren't familiar with Cargo Generate, it allows you to just mention a repository. This is the GitHub repository for Workers RS, and it'll go read that repo and read all the templates. We have a couple of older templates that just show you using a basic Axum, as well as a hello world, and a hello world using the new HTTP crate types. The new one is this Leptos template. So
hey, Kevin, is there any way you could either full screen your console or just enlarge it a little bit? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there we go.
I did want to also have the browser side by side, but hopefully that's readable.
Yes, that's much better. Yeah, perfect.
Cool. So it just asks you what you want to name your project. That is what your cargo project name will be called. And I will just show, this is kind of a standard Leptos project. So you've got the Leptos config in your cargo.toml. I don't think we have a lot of overrides here. I think we copied some of the sort of documentation for the defaults into this. And then we have a CLI tool called Wrangler that helps with both local development and deployment. And this is sort of the Wrangler configuration. You can see we first call Leptos build. That builds the front end assets, and then we call worker build, which actually builds the back end assets using the cargo feature flags. And then we tell Leptos is configured to put the front end assets into the public directory, and we tell workers to serve that as workers assets. So if I just let me actually want to copy a wrangler.toml that I made before. This just specifies a particular account ID, so I don't have to type it in. And then I can just run Wrangler dev, and that'll build the project. So let me just kind of quickly show you what the code looks like in here. This is a Leptos kind of demo where we've got this was contributed by a community member, Brandon Dyer, and we just kind of adapted it for this template. But we basically demonstrate there's like a signal in this component. We're invoking this server function, which is going to be running on workers. We're displaying what the API is returning. And then, this is our API function. There's nothing special here. In our main library top file. This is sort of the method that you would typically implement for workers. So we give you a request object. This is an HTTP crate request. We also give you an environment object, which gives you access to all of the platform features that you may have configured for your worker, like a key value store or a SQLite database. If you want to read more about this context object, this lets you do some interesting stuff on the platform as well. It's documented for workers. And then, of course, this is our front end components entry point function. And then we just set up an Axum router just like we would for any other Leptos backend project. And actually, I suspect a lot of this code could be shared with if you're also targeting a platform other than workers. There's a lot of our customers are able to reuse code between the two platforms. And this should be almost build. Cool. All right. So if I just go to localhost, I can see my component and I can hit the server-side function. And then if I'm ready to sort of push to production, that's also very quick. So it just uploads the static assets, and then there we go. We should get a link back that we can access the worker from. Yep. So this is now running publicly on the workers network. If we want to edit the file, of course, we just get the incremental builds from Cargo, and so updating the worker in production is quite quick as well. So yeah, that's basically all I got. I'll stop sharing. And I'm happy to stick around and answer questions.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin, for showing us that. And Ben was able to join us. Thank you, Ben, for joining us.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the tech just does not work. Like, I basically had to rewire my entire desk. So hopefully this works now.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, I couldn't be more excited to have a template for Leptos in Cloudflare. You're using base Axum, right? In compiled to WebAssembly?
Yeah, that's correct. I think we disable default features in whatever Axum standard WebAssembly support is, but otherwise it's pretty much right out of the box.
Okay, that's awesome.
And I just found out about Axum or Leptos at RustConf this year, and I was super excited to see if we could get it working on workers. And then I found that you support Deno as a target. You've already figured out all the WebAssembly stuff for us, so this was really easy. So love that.
When would you recommend reaching for workers over, say, like, I don't know, a regular Axum, micro VM, or EC2?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the biggest selling point for workers is, if you want to be close to your customers. So our locations are within, I think, 50 milliseconds of anyone on the internet. So, if you've got a ton of clients that are very latency dependent, then a worker is a great option there. Even if that's not the case, and I think online a lot of people argue that if you're connecting to a backend database, backend API, that it kind of doesn't make sense to be running workers at the edge. I think we have some really great solutions that make sense there as well. I maybe before you joined, I mentioned Hyperdrive is great for connecting to databases. We also have a feature called Smart Placement, which will actually intelligently place your worker. If you're making a bunch of backend API calls, we'll actually place your worker closer to your backend. And then I think just our architecture really lends itself to scalability. I mean, we're able to serve from any one of our servers globally. I think we're up to 30,000 now. And so that's a lot of requests that we can serve. So if you get the Hacker News hug of death or something like that, we should handle it just fine.
You beat my next question, which was going to be about databases, because distributed databases are kind of hard and difficult. Yep. But apparently, I can just turn my existing regional database into a globally distributed database. So that's cool.
Yeah, we have great integrations with, I use it with Neon all the time. I think that's a cool technology. We also have some of our own offerings. So D1 is like a managed SQLite offering. If you don't want to think about it at all and you're fine with SQLite, which I think actually has worked for a lot of people recently. And then we just introduced, there's a platform feature called Durable Objects, which is sort of a stateful actor that unlocks a lot of interesting, sort of distributed state computing that you can do. And we just added SQLite to Durable Objects as well. And the cool thing about that is it's completely synchronous. We have a really interesting blog post about that that sort of explains how we've achieved that. So
awesome. Dennis is asking whether you can be region specific for workers to meet GPDR regulations for the EU.
So I don't know 100% certain, but we have a lot of GDPR offerings, and I'm pretty sure you're able to region lock workers. Of course, you can't control where your users are connecting from necessarily. I mean, we do offer some CDN features to control who's able to access a worker, but I believe we can region lock where the worker runs and where the logs are stored. We do automatic telemetry if you want.
Very cool. Very cool stuff. I definitely gonna have to check it out. The Cloudflare integration has been a bit of a trek with our community members. You know, it had some caveats, and now it sounds like it mostly just works. So I need to try it again for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
For sure. Awesome. Well,
Cool.
I think that's it. Thank you so much for joining, Kevin. I think we would go ahead and move on. Yeah, and if you have any updates or anything in the future, Kevin, just reach out to Ben, reach out to myself on Discord or X. You're welcome back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
All right. So up next, we've got Mauro from Stalwart. Mauro, I'll be bringing you on stage. And
Hi. Hello.
Good. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Great. So I understand you're going to be discussing, so you are going to showcase something you've built using Leptos, which I guess is a web admin dashboard or I'll tell you what, I'll let you tell us about it. So maybe
Okay.
just introduce
What
yourself.
is Stalwart, basically?
Yeah. Okay. Stalwart is an all-in-one mail server written in Rust. So it includes the protocols you know, like IMAP, SMTP, POP3, but also includes supports JMAP, which aims to replace IMAP. It's a modern email protocol. And well, if you then look at the GitHub, at our repository, you'll see it has a lot of modern features, security features, and supports distributed environments and so on. And Stalwart does not have a webmail yet, but it does have a web admin that was written with Leptos. Using this web admin, you can configure every single aspect of the mail server. There are hundreds of configuration things you can change, and also it has a management UI where you can manage not only your users but also the outgoing queues, the SMTP queues, the reports, the DMARC, TLS reports you got, and the ones that your server is going to send, and many other many other things. And there's also a self-service portal for users that they can log in, change their passwords, set up two-factor authentication, and also set up encryption at rest. And that's it basically. So I'm mostly a backend developer. So it was the last time I did some UI was a long time ago. It was with jQuery. So I don't have experience with other React frameworks, other UI frameworks. But it was a pleasure to work with Leptos. I was dreading the moment I had to start working on the UI, but it was really, it was really a pleasure. And having also a lot of having the backend in Rust, it was really easy to work with the serializing data, exchanging data between the backend and the front end. And I forgot to mention that it's the web admin is a single page application, so there's no, because people did not want to. Sorry, the Stalwart user did not want to put an extra load on the on the server by rendering the content for the client. So it's using all the official APIs.
I should ask, because what I've always heard with email and email handling is, oh, you don't want to do email because your IPs have to be trusted and you run into issues. How has that gone for you? Do you think that's kind of overblown as far as email servers go?
Yes, it is. It is a bit because perhaps that people who said that come from the postfix and dovecot times that you need to set up very complex configurations that are very not well documented. The goal of Stalwart was to make it easy. It's just if you take a look at the installation instructions, is you enter your domain name, you create your users, and it gives you a list of all the DNS records you need to add. So if you will have full compliance with everything other mail servers expect. But then there is a reality that some IP addresses and IP addresses range are blocked, are in different providers. Mm-hmm. So if you want to set up your email, an email server, there are two alternatives. The problem is always not receiving. Receiving always works well. The problem is sending, that you will be able to send, but many servers will place your messages in the spam folder, like Google. So you need to find an IP address with a good reputation. And
is there a way to check reputation? Like, can I hit a button that says test reputation, get a list of people who will accept my email?
No, there are different services. For example, Stalwart also includes a spam filter, its own spam filter, and it uses different lists, like rspamd and Spam Assassin also rely on. They're like, Spam Cop, and I don't remember, but there are many. So what you should do is check the IP address you got, and there are also some tools like mailtester.com where you can check the reputation. You send an email to an address, and an address they give you, and then you log in and you check what is the reputation of your how spammy your messages are. So basically, if you got an IP with a bad reputation, you just need a new VPS, bless you, or ask your provider to give you a new IP, basically.
Great. I mean, that's always the tricky part, I think, for me and email is, are my emails getting delivered? Because I'd hate to write like a lovely newsletter or something and not have it delivered with, to most of the people I want to deliver it to.
What some users do is they hire like a delivery service, like a relay server, like, I don't know, Amazon SES, or that is another alternative. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. If you like, I can show you the UI. Okay.
Let's look at the dashboard. I'm very curious.
Yeah.
I've certainly built some dashboards, and I want one in Leptos. I can adapt for things, so maybe I'll have to start with the Stalwart dashboard.
Okay, that's cool. Let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it. You might want to make it a little bit larger, if you can.
It's better, I know.
That got a little smaller, I think, for me. Oh, I meant like zoom in a little. Oh. There you go. That's good.
Okay. Let me okay, this is the Stalwart web admin. I know there is, I forgot the name, but you have your own UI component, right? And there's also another, last time I checked, this was some months ago, there was like an external UI framework, and then the Leptos one. Is that the components? I mean, there was a.
So there's no official one. There is Leptonic and Thar, the two big ones.
Yeah, those are the ones I forgot. Yeah, the components here. What I had to do is, because I wanted the dashboard to look really modern and have a nice design. I relied on Tailwind and Preline. So they have, I don't know if you ever check them. They have, I mean, they give you the CSS, the HTML and the CSS, and they also have some JavaScript. But what I wanted to avoid is having to rely on JavaScript. So all the animations and the, well, anything you need to, basically animation, hiding, displaying messages or drop downs, and doing the accordions, all that had to be implemented on with Leptos. With using Rust code, basically. So it has no JavaScript at all.
Nice.
Yeah. So basically, it was a lot of work because I had to implement each component. This one, here the dashboard is using a chart from the Leptos library. I forgot the name. Sorry. But everything else, because this is more dynamic, everything else is HTML with from Preline, obtained from Preline. For example, here now you see the accounts, all these components. Those are custom components, and you can write they have here. You can select none or specify the amounts. Then let me see. You also have. Sorry, I was. You have reports visualizing. You can see the demand reports. What happens? So basically, I won't show you the whole because there are a lot of screens. But basically, this is the management page where you can see the
very cool,
the different parts of the dashboard, where you can see the connections, all the security, the security dashboard, then delivery, what happens, how long it's taking to deliver messages, performance. Then here directory, you manage your accounts, group, leads, domain, roles, queues is the messages you send, the report you send. Then there is
like
also
you can have multiple domains for a single server. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, multiple tenants also. Yeah.
Oh.
And then there is also this functionality that is where you can see your logs, but it also has live tracing, which is using event streams. So you can have this.
That's
I'm
fancy.
going to, yeah. I'm
No one's
now
gonna
on
hit
the
your
terminal.
server.
I'm connecting. You see these things in real time. You're seeing, and here, hello. Yeah,
for sure.
And you can see in real time what is going on, what the server is doing, and have filters and based on the data you have.
What do you
because
think
if you have a very busy server, sorry.
I was just going to ask, what do you think the largest Stalwart server is out there in the wild?
Like there, one with I think 300,000 accounts, mailboxes. I think is the largest one. The ones I know of, because usually when people install it, they share it if they like, if they want. And okay, and and then there's another screen with the configuration. Stalwart also has expressions, and this is an expression validator also written in Rust. It's an expression language that Stalwart uses to dynamically evaluate settings. But as you can see, there are a lot of settings everywhere. So what I had to do here, because
that expression,
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. About that expression language, at work right now, we're working on creating our own expression language like thing. How did you make that language? How did that work?
Well, this is not used in the UI. The UI in Leptos, it's parsing the expression and making sure it's correct, so the grammar is correct, but it's evaluated by the server. So yeah, basically I wrote an interpreter, so it compiles the parts of the different functions and the variables, and it creates like a bytecode that is evaluated when the expression is executed. Yeah,
tree sitter for the grammar?
Sorry?
Tree sitter for the grammar, or do you use something else?
No, I wrote the part because I like writing parsers, so I write it by myself. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, that is a.
I won't derail us too much, but this is an interesting thing I have to deal with right now. So,
yeah,
JMap. I'm curious about that because I've heard of it, but I'm not sure anything uses it. What is JMap?
Yeah, that is correct. It's a new protocol that was created by Fastmail, the email provider. I don't remember. I think it was released in a few years ago, 2018, or I'm not sure. So basically, it's an HTTP. JMap is JSON sent over HTTP. It also has WebSockets, event streams, and it basically replaces IMAP and SMTP for submissions. I mean, not SMTP, the SMTP used between servers. But for example, with just and JMap client with that relies on HTTP, you can also send messages, check the message queue. So it's quite flexible. So this would allow you to have a webmail client that runs as a SPA, as a single page application, and does not require like server side code, like most webmails, Roundcube, SnappyMail. They're basically they have their own API that is converting those requests to IMAP requests. With JMap, you could have an SPA that directly sends email, checks email, and basically it's a modern IMAP that is web-based, but it has more features, better for synchronization, and also there is coming now JMap for contacts, calendars, tasks. So it aims to replace not only IMAP and SMTP for submissions, but also CalDAV, CardDAV, WebDAV, everything DAV, and so
that is a lot of different protocols for sure. Is this both? Are you using the Axum backend for this, or do you have a choice? Or
no, I'm using HTTP.
Oh, right, you said CSR, right? So it's almost anything.
Yeah, it's not. Cool. It's not because I didn't want to add any overhead for. I'm sure they're pretty lean, these frameworks, but I wanted to control what's going on, how the requests are parsed and so on. Let me show you, because I have it on another screen.
Sure.
Really quick, while you're loading that up, Mauro. Somebody asks, will it work with Leptos 0.6?
I haven't looked at let me see what I have. Which version I'm using.
Actually, I think that might have been, sorry, I'm getting my question. I think that might have been a question for Kevin and Cloudflare, although I'm not quite sure.
I'm on 0.69.
Okay. That was for Cloudflare. Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, never mind.
Well, actually,
but we answered it anyway.
Okay.
Answering questions.
Okay.
We're answering questions nobody even asked over here. That's how diligent we are.
Need a little checkbox next to them that says we did this already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What do you think was the hardest part of building the dashboard?
I know that you mean the web admin or the dashboard only? Because the dashboard was pretty fast to implement it.
I guess I mean in a Leptos context, right? Because you came into this with no front end experience, or at least no recent front end experience. I'm curious how that felt, learning Leptos and using Leptos.
Yeah, there was a learning curve, of course, and yeah, I started with the tutorials, and then until I got an idea of how the events works and the signals, memos, and all that. Yeah, I started by creating like a very simple application and building from there. What was weird to me, because on the mail server code, I try to be efficient and use references rather than cloning and all the cloning that goes on in Leptos, but that made me feel uncomfortable. But then I started wrapping everything in arcs, so that was one nicer. But yeah, I guess it's how you do it to support the reactive. I didn't check how Leptos works internally, but I guess it is something you're doing to support support the reactive, all the events and all that. One thing I wanted to show is that as you've seen in the web admin, there are like dozens and dozens and hundreds of fields. So I didn't want to be manually creating dozens of screens and checkboxes and dropdowns. So I create like a schema to define the pages. You can see here I define a schema called network. I create a new field with a placeholder, what needs to check, what is the default. Then, for example, here's I define an expression. So, and this is evaluated, and for example, here you define the fields, and then here, for example, there's a form section with these fields and so on. So what it does basically is it creates all the screens automatically. So you don't have to manually create every text box out there, validator. So it's a schema that you define once and is rendered everywhere. Yeah.
Interesting. So to make this work, I guess you must have like a giant list of components that are just tied to one of these.
Yeah, they're not so many, but for example, there is a for the list, pagination. For example, let me see. I don't want alert. And what it does is it outputs the HTML required.
Okay.
To render. Here. For example, this is an expression. The OK class has, you can add, because it has multiple, an expression can have multiple if blocks. So that's the components you need. It perform validation, changing the classes when when there is an error to adapt the color and so on. Still, this needs to be, because all the classes are defined here, which is in the code, which is increasing the size of the WASM. So at some point, once this is the code is the web admin is finished, I will move this to a CSS, so they don't have to be strings defined in the code. But yeah, for the time being, it's like that. But yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to show to you.
That's really cool. I've thought about a similar thing when I've been toying with the idea of like a Leptos CMS, where you have to kind of define a schema that generates a page and API endpoints for different data fields and stuff like that. And this is a lot farther along than I got on that project before I got pulled away, but I'll have to check this out. It's very neat.
It was necessary because it was a lot of work otherwise, having to create so many many settings, and also it's repetitive work and a lot of lists, pages, and all that. But yeah, it was
Personally,
yeah.
I was just gonna personally, I think if anyone's seen like the Django dashboards where you create some data fields and it generates a dashboard for you, like I'd love to have that in Leptos someday. And this is somewhat close to that, and I'm excited to check out how you did it for sure.
Okay, yeah, that is not so generic because it was it's only implementing the stuff that I needed for Stalwart. So, but basically for something entering data and validating, for example, you could create a CRM if you wanted with this component because you have everything you need for a CRM. You run reports, and it's quite automated also.
No, I
The
think if I ever
only
do work on that project, I think it will be a big step forward to look at your code. So
yeah.
Thanks for showing that for
there are
sure.
a few, yeah, sure. You're welcome.
Sam Judelson asks, how did you learn how to build a schema like this?
I don't know. It felt right.
That's a good reason as any.
No, and also because I had previous experience. I work in the past in enterprise software, so I had created something similar in Java and many years ago. So it was like a programming language kind of to create business applications. So I kind of knew, but it was when I was called, not with Flash. There was a framework before that was quite popular. I forgot the name. It was many years. It was Flash based. Yeah, there was a set of components that were using Flash. That was in the 2000s, something like that. But
well, I'm sure
I guess it was
somewhere
previous
there
experience
is.
from before.
I'm sure somewhere there is like a Internet Explorer box on XP that is still running your business app thingy. So
yeah, I guess
for
so,
sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we've gone through all the questions, unless you've seen any other ones, Luke.
Nope.
No. Well, then I will thank you again for coming. You know, I learned quite a bit. Now I'm going to have to dig around in the Stalwart repo very soon. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining, Mauro.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. So up next, we've got some updates on 0.7. And of course, if anybody has any questions for 0.7, just be sure to save those to the end. We'll hit questions about for Ben on 0.7 towards the end. So Tim, I'm going to go ahead and bring you onto the stream now. So Tim has created a library called Leptos WebSockets, and he's going to tell us all about it. How are you, Tim?
I'm great. And yeah, I think I'll just show my demos.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's great to have this because one of the other things I always hear is, how do you do WebSockets? How do you do SSE? And SSE is a little bit easier, but WebSockets, you know, maybe looks like you've built something that integrates it really nicely. So I'm excited.
Yeah, so there's already the Leptos SSE was before, I think, and Leptos SE or something like that. One of them did it with WebSockets, and another one did it with servers and events. The problem was I did not like them. I did not like how you had to do it in the background, because you had, I think, without a lot of trying to do it right, you had only one signal that you could send over the WebSocket. And I tried to make it a bit easier, did my own API for it, and I think I'll just show it a bit. So firstly, when you connect to the website, I'm using Leptos use in the backend. On the client side, I use Leptos use for the WebSocket connection. And the first thing we do is we register our signals. Here we register count, or I don't know if it's big enough. So here we register count, history, and then we get our responses. How much do we have in the count? How many entries do we have? And now when I start the counter, I send it via a server function, and then we get it. Then we get here via JSON patch, we get our new synchronized values. And if I now open my my app in another window, we can nicely see it synchronize. And it's also possible for lists. It's possible for everything. And for today, I prepared. Okay, that was the first example I ever did, and it was a bit simple. And today I wanted a bit more useful example, and I created a small testing chat app where you can simply send a message, and I just say, "Hello, we won." If I do it right. So, and as you can see, it's on a second monitor, on a second window too. And in the backend, it's pretty easy to do. If someone wants to join, it's hosted at chat.temtom2016.com. So if someone wants to write something in there, it's okay, it's public. But in the backend, I have here I'll just do it here. We have here our app, and it's really easy to set up. We just have here our provide WebSocket, where we say which WebSocket do we connect to. In this case, localhost 3000 / WS. And then we say our signals. We create here our signals, give them a name, and give them an initial value. And then we can display them here. Here, for example, the messages are with a simple for. And the only thing I don't have working is client writable signals. So it's only possible to send from the server to the clients. But I'm still planning to do client writable signals. But for now, I just wanted to have server writable signals. So it's a bit more ordered who can send, what happens. And in this case, I just have a simple server function where I also do my new server signal. And the thing is, if there is already a server signal defined in the context, we just ignore this value here and already get our full list in this case. And we can just like press the button, send, and we have our new message on every computer in the whole world who subscribed for it. And I think I did not try, but we support a lot of signals, so as many as you want. And because you have it via strings here, you can just do like user ID or something in there, so it's still a bit private for your session or something like that. So it's just a string, so not so hard. And the only problem is it's a bit hard for the backend because you need to pass it. Okay. You need to pass it into each handler that you have. For example, the render root with context, you need to give them their server signals, then to the server function handler, and even the Leptos generate root list function, because we need to know what server signals we have everywhere. And by doing that simple example, I found a small issue, for example, that had the server send a full list to the client because it was server rendered. The problem was the client only initializes itself when it gets the first message from the server sent. So it had a bit of a client server problem, and I found that one in that example. And but I'm still working it out, looking for everything that could be there, and well, it's
Cool.
certainly nicer.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely progress. WebSockets can be tricky. Like the last time it came up, there were a couple of people asked a lot of questions about like, how do you do auth in WebSockets? And how do you send only this specific group and have a bunch of different collections of people on a WebSocket? And managing all of that is not super easy. So I'm sure I don't think you're doing that now, but I'm sure you'll get there eventually, right?
Yeah, as of now, it's only doing it by a JSON patch that handles mostly everything for me. But the transmitting of the data was a bit trial and error for the first few weeks. But now it works pretty reliable. And I mean, there's still some issues, like if you, sometimes I have it on my laptop working and I close it and it goes into standby, opens again, and I need to reconnect the WebSockets because they disconnected when it was on standby. And I could certainly do something like send a ping message every 20 seconds and then reconnect if there's none or something like that. But it's still, the basic functionality is there. And as of now, I only support the beta of Leptos 0.7 because you introduced ARC RV signals and generally ARC signals, and it made it a lot finer to write. And especially all these new traits for the signals, because they were in 0.6 a bit spaced apart, defined all these traits, and now they are depending on each other. So it's really nice. You only need to like only override 1 or 2 traits, and it automatically does it for every other one. And the nice thing is, in this case for the server signals, is that you can override them wherever you are in the whole application. It does not care where you are. It automatically sends it over the server pattern, sends it to all clients.
Yeah, you gotta love the Leptos server signals crate somebody wrote for sure. Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited. I'm learned that it doesn't have YouTube support or probably images, but you know, it's a very nice demo. Thanks for making that.
Oh, there. Nice.
Yeah, we have some people chatting. We've got our own. We need to fire up like a chat room now for the meetups. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is the example only saves like 50 messages and then it's forgotten forever, never seen again. But thanks for writing.
The Snapchat of
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Samples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Well,
and I'm glad that you are using 0.7. You know, it's good to have more people testing the beta, for sure. If you reload the page, it shows more things.
Yeah, I just saw it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the thing was, I created this crate or library for Leptos because me and a few friends were doing a small app in school, and we had to synchronize a lot of graphs, and we did it via polling. And I think it's a lot nicer to do it via WebSockets because it's just easier. You don't need to care. You just don't just get it when you need them.
No, that's fair. I mean, you know, it's students have produced a lot of fun things, so it's a nice library. So,
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any questions in the chat? I'm not seeing any so far.
It's perfect in every way, is what I've that means.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if some people try it out, and let me know if you find any issues or find any features you want, I can certainly work on it, and I hope everyone has a nice WebSocket experience, I guess.
Yeah.
Thanks
People
for
are writing
coming.
into the chat. No questions. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Web transport too will be coming out eventually. Then you can do bi-directional streaming. So
Yeah.
future crate.
Yeah, then it's Leptos Web Transport 2.0 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, well then, yeah, like Tim said, if anybody uses it, I posted the link to the repo in the chat. So if anybody uses Leptos WebSockets, finds any bugs, or has a feature that you'd like to toss out there and see developed, go to the libraries channel in Discord. Tim's there, and he's been posting there. So, Tim, thank you for joining, and
Thanks for having me.
absolutely, and with that. I guess we can move on to 0.7.
0.7, yes. It's been an interesting couple weeks in 0.7. So for those of you who haven't been tuning in, 0.7 is the next version of Leptos that we're working on. We are on beta, I want to say 5 now. And we've had a whole bunch of people testing it and submitting feedback for it. So feel free to check that out. There's a pretty good list of things that have changed in 0.7 that you can go to the release notes and kind of see in long detail. But in the short form, we've rewritten the reactive system. Their traits now are cleaner and composed so that they're easier to work with, as Tim previously mentioned. We've added handling of futures and resources, which is a big change and a nice improvement for UI. We've rewritten the type system to use more static types instead of arrays types, and that nets us smaller binary sizes and faster speeds. And while it's farther behind, I'm currently rewriting Cargo Leptos to both make it nicer and to include WASM splitting. So soon you'll be able to split up your WebAssembly bundle like per route if you'd like, which is very exciting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the rough feature list. We can link the release notes for 0.7 that lists all the things in the chat. The last couple weeks have been tricky for us because the static types thing I mentioned earlier has basically produced some very large, very wide and very deep types, recursive types, and we've basically broken the Rust compiler. So the answer to the question of, is there a type that is too big to realistically use in the compiler? Yes, there is. I don't know exactly where it is because people seem to hit it at somewhat random points, but we've had all sorts of weird linker issues the last couple weeks. Thankfully, I will say that I think we've worked around that by making our types a little bit less steep and doing a little bit of type erasure in there. So most of those linker issues seem to be resolved in the latest Git. Check that out and let us know if they're not resolved, and we'll have to think about it a little bit more. But that's been the biggest thing for the last couple of weeks for us. Trying to think if there's anything else I missed. I don't think so. Have you been looking at 0.7, Luke, or have you tried it yet?
No, I haven't tried it yet. I think I'm still on 0.5. Yeah.
0.5.
Maybe
You're
I'm
an
on.
oldie.
I can't remember. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't upgraded in a while. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's fair. I mean, it will keep working, you know. So if it's 0.5 works for you, you can stay on 0.5. I talk a little bit about reliability and how reliable these sites are. The Leptos website was up for like a year. Nobody touched it. You know, I'm sure it could have gone on a lot longer without anybody touching it. The last thing I should say about 0.7 is in terms of release date. It's the other question we get. I'd say right now that it is in a workable state. The APIs are basically done. We will continue to fix bugs as they come up, but I encourage you to try it because we could release it now, but then it probably has some bugs. Or we could just try to fix a few more for a while longer and then transition later, is kind of our thinking. I imagine we'll actually push an official 0.7 sometime in the next, I don't know, 2-3 months maybe, depending on how many more things break. So,
Yeah.
and Greg is working on some lovely stores example. He's probably going to demo that next month, but stores are a good way to handle like nested recursive elements. Like if you have a struct that contains a struct that contains a field and you want to update that one field or only get updates for that one field, that's like a store. So that's pretty neat stuff too. But I'll let him do that next month. So
Cool. I am on 0.6. I just checked. So
nice.
yes. Yeah. But I've been wanting to upgrade to 0.7. I need to go back and watch the meetup from, I don't know, I don't think it was the last one. Maybe it was the one before where Greg did the 0.7 upgrade on the show. So I need to go watch that and see what I'm up against. For those watching who may not be familiar, how significant of a process is that going from, say, 0.6 to 0.7?
I'd say it's not terribly bad, and Greg does have a lovely video of how to do that. I think it was last time, but I could be wrong. So looking at the questions here, you do have to rewrite. You don't have to rewrite. We made a few things more rusty. So like instead of create _ signal, we've got a struct signal : new. We've done that in a few spots. So you'll have to swap out a few of those calls, or you'll want to anyway.
Yep, I
but for
remember
the
that.
most part, and you'll have to change a few feature flags on the projects. But for the most part, I'm not thinking of anything that like doesn't work. Like resources, even though we changed the syntax and you can now do futures, the old ones still work perfectly fine. So it's mostly just semantic things with the UI. So not too bad.
Yep.
Sam Judelson asks, has it been pushed a couple of times? No, it's never been pushed. I mean, Greg or I have probably said a few times, it's like, oh, we'll think 0.7 will come out in a month, and then we find something new and exciting to work on. Or, as like the last few weeks, we find fun linker errors. But there's not really an official timeline, so I can't really say it's ever been delayed. So that's a great way to avoid never being late, is never have an official timeline.
There are no timelines in open source. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. So Seraphy VR, Cargo Leptos is still very specific for SSR, right? SPA depends on trunk.
SPA, so single page app, yes, CSR or SPA is dependent on trunk. Historically, the reason for that has been that we basically either have to call out to trunk or recreate trunk to do the work trunk does. And Cargo Leptos has been not the most contributed to projects over the years, and it's not, we have lots of stuff to do. I'm considering adding CSR to Cargo Leptos in the rewrites. Some people have asked for it for like CSS handling, and maybe some file watching things. But right now I haven't started that work, so maybe.
Cool. Mark D. Entremont, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, asks, I'm new to Leptos. Welcome, first of all. And he continues, are the docs for 0.7 relatively current? That was actually something I've been wondering, is who's working on the docs these days? Because it was our friend Daniel, and he's had some things come up, and I'm not sure how much he's been able to spend on that. So that was actually something I was wondering as well.
It's a good question. As far as Daniel goes, I haven't heard from him in a while. I haven't seen much from him in a while. I hope he's doing all right.
Yeah.
But these things happen. As for the docs, the officially generated docs, like the Rust docs for 0.7 are, complete-ish mostly. Like whenever we write a feature, we do update like the example and the doc comments. So those docs are pretty up to date. If they're not up to date, you should let us know, but I think those ones are good. I've certainly looked at them a few times. There are a few missing sections, I think, but we're getting there. Docs are a great way for people to contribute. If you're somewhat comfortable with Rust and you're using 0.7 and you find something you're not clear or not there, feel free to submit PRs for that. The book, which a lot of people love and use, the Leptos book, unfortunately is still on 0.6. So I think we'll be limited for that until we get a little farther along in development. And then I suppose Greg or I or the community will have to go through and update that. I mean, most of it is still the same, but the examples, syntax has changed a little bit in some places.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I know. I love the book. I actually just installed, or I just plugged MD Book into a project that I'm working on, my side project, the other day.
Exciting.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's cool. It's fun. So Seraphy BR asks again, have you ever thought about a tool that identifies these version changes and makes the changes in place, like some Angular programs have this?
It's a good question. I mean, I've thought about it. Right now, Leptos is run or primarily developed by me and Greg. We don't really have the bandwidth to do that kind of tooling. I mean, the closest thing I guess we have is Leptos format, Leptos FMT, which formats your Leptos code. And that probably could pretty easily do some of these changes for you. But, we'd have to get that developed, and I don't see that as likely to happen soonish. If that's something you're interested in, you are happy to talk to, I think Brahm develops that, and we have a little channel for it. Check that out if you'd like to work on that.
All right. Spitzer asks, not related specifically to 0.7, but do you have any updates on the plan for island support?
So that's also a good question. In 0.6, we have islands marked as experimental islands. Experimental-islands is the feature that you enable. In 0.7, it's just going to be islands. They work well. They're in production at a bunch of places. There are a few small things that are wrong in 0.6 that were fixed in 0.7. Greg has talked a little bit about a islands router, which is an example, I guess, where you do instead of going to the server every time for routing and default islands, you do some client-side routing in islands, at least as I understand it. And that's probably pretty likely to happen. I would ask the counter question, what are people looking for in islands that is not there? Because as far as I can tell, we are mostly up to date with the islands implementations and other things like Astro. So if you have something that you're looking for in islands, please let us know. For sure.
Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Can't we use Cloud Sonnet to update the book based on changelog? I don't know.
So, I mean, I've certainly tried to use AI tools to write Leptos code, and it does tend to hallucinate code examples and invent things that aren't there. So, I mean, yes, I probably could feed the book into that, but I'd end up having to rewrite probably what it generates anyway. So, you know, it's not reliable enough.
I fed Chat GPT like my entire, basically all the documentation from like my cargo toml, and it actually was worse like than just using it regularly. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. And especially because 0.7, you know, there's no training data for it, right? Because it's all new, it's all beta. So it doesn't,
Yeah.
I don't think it has any idea of what the new API would look like.
Yeah. I think it
Client
was not even
routing
long ago.
islands.
Like I think it was not even long ago. You asked Chat GPT like, "What is Leptos?" and it's like, "Oh, it's a popular Python framework." You know, like didn't even know that it was Rust. It was really funny. Yeah.
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 Awesome.
Client routing in islands when JS is enabled would be nice too. Yeah.
That is the islands router. So we are looking at that. I don't know if we'll gate 0.7 on that or if we'll just kind of work on it and release it in line, but we are looking at that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are at 1 hour and 11 minutes. So I would
Nice.
call it here unless you have anything else, Ben.
No. Let's see. I will be at Eurorust next month, right? October, yes. And I'll have Leptos swag. So if you'd like, come find me and I can give you stickers and things. I'm not speaking at Eurorust this time, so I'll just be there. So
Cool.
check that out if
And
you're interested.
yeah, and on that note, the next meetup is going to be Saturday, October 26th. So yeah, so
Okay.
everybody, thank you for joining us. And if you're at Eurorust, be sure to hit Ben up for some swag. Otherwise, we'll be on Discord, and we'll see everybody October 26th. Thanks for joining.
Great. Yes, thanks for joining.
All right, bye.